Hi everybody, welcome to How to Use Explain Everything. This is a tutorial by Abby Sears, Abigail Legate, Madison Oriente, and Magdalene Shelton. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you'll want to do when you open your Explain Everything app is create the first slide for your presentation. This is your home screen that you are seeing here. As you open Explain Everything, you'll see this plus sign in the upper left hand corner, which will generate your first slide. So go ahead and click on that to create the slide. Welcome to your new slide. So this is what pops up when you have pressed the plus button. You'll see here you have a variety of tools that you can use to create your presentation. So we will start off by going down this list here on the left side of our screen and review the function of each one of these buttons. Is the selection tool, and this allows you to select and move objects on the page. So if you see here on the far left, I'm selecting my selection tool and I can move this image around. This is a screenshot of my Explain Everything dashboard. Next we have the draw tool, the pen tool. This allows me to draw directly on the page. So as you can see here, I will just make a couple of lines. You can change the thickness, you can change the color. This will allow you to add some fun shapes and custom text maybe to your presentation. Next we have the marker tool, which is very similar to the pen tool, but it allows you to use a transparent mark, so you can highlight objects or you can color them, and I will go ahead and pull up the highlighter so you can see what it looks like. Here's an example where you can see I've highlighted fine arts, and I've already colored in this shape beforehand, but here it is on page, oops, sorry, that's the wrong tool. There we go. See how it's much lighter than the pen tool. Next we have our shape tool, which allows us to create shapes. We have a couple of preset shapes you can see here that Explain Everything gives to us: circle, square, arrow, star. And you have the option to create a border around those or not, and create a shadow, a very light shadow around. So we will go ahead and create a shape by selecting our menu. We want to create a star. So if you click and drag, you can adjust the size of your shape, and then your selection tool allows you to move that shape freely around your page. Next we have the text tool, which is what I've been using to insert all of my text into this presentation. The text tool allows you to change your font size, your font, the color, and then move that anywhere you'd like on page. So we'll go ahead and create a text box here that just says hello. I have selected Avenir Next Regular, and I am typing in bright green. So now with our selection tool, we can move that wherever we want. Next is the Insert Object tool. This is also what I've been using in this presentation to show you screenshots of Explain Everything. You can add photos, videos, sounds, math equations, web browsers, and you can insert videos into your presentation as well by selecting this tool. The X tool allows you to delete objects off of your page. When you have this tool selected and you click on an object, it gives you the option to go ahead and delete it. So I'll show you this in real time. Let's make a circle. I'm going to click and drag my circle, and now I want to get rid of that, so I'm going to select the X tool and click on my circle, and it's generated this X up in the corner, and I can delete it. Next we have our pointer tool, and the pointer tool allows you to show a pointer on screen during your presentation, which you can pick and choose. So I'm going to use the red pointer and show you what that looks like. And that can just emphasize to your viewer what you want them to be looking at during your presentation. We also have some fun pointers like this lightsaber. I don't really know when this would be used. Regardless, it is pretty fun. Next we have our design tool, so if you click on this little eye in the box right here, it pulls that up for you, and you can drag that around page wherever you want. So the design tool allows you to complete design functions such as arranging images, locking, duplicating, copy, paste, rotating, a lot of different functions for the objects and shapes and text that you've created. If you have a very interactive page with a lot of layers, this will help you organize that a little better. So next we have a couple simple tools here. We have the undo function, which allows you to undo your last function. So we'll test that out right here. I'll draw a line and say I don't want that anymore. It's the last thing that I did, so we can undo. We can also redo by pressing that button. The zoom tool allows me to zoom in on an object in my presentation. And then this little box here at the very, very end allows me to minimize my menu while I'm giving a presentation. It gives me a more simplified look. So you can see there the toggle between the advanced and the simplified. And then lastly, down at the very bottom, we have the color palette. The application allows us to choose rapidly 3 different colors that we select as our favorites, but if you would like to change one of those, you can click on the color and get very specific with what color you want to select by clicking and dragging within this color wheel, as well as the opacity of your color.
There are several different questions that should be taken into account to ensure a smooth transition of technology into a district. The first is to consider what is the vision of learning that technology will be supporting. So basically, before making decisions about technology, schools and districts need to be able to articulate how students will use technology to learn. It's important that the learning objectives will drive the use of the technology and not the other way around. The second question is what digital tools will be needed. So consider the technology that's needed for what you want to do in your classroom. For example, virtual dissections will require different technologies than using a smartboard to lecture. The next question is what kind of a professional development will teachers need to become proficient with digital learning? So districts can distribute the technology to their schools, but the teachers are not going to use them if they don't know how. This will require time and training, and districts need to be sure to implement the necessary training for their teachers so that the teachers can then train the students how to use the technology and have it be used efficiently in the classroom. The next three questions kind of go together. What's your current network capacity? What is the current state of the physical infrastructure? And how many and what type of devices are needed? So basically, if you don't have the right network capacity, your lessons will not be faster as originally intended by implementing the technology, but they'll be slower because the lesson materials will take too long to load. Likewise, how many and what type of devices are needed is an important question to ask so that students aren't getting off topic, having to share devices between one another, but rather they can each have their own and work efficiently on them. The last question is what resources are available to fund the transition? And this is a question that's kind of answered repeatedly in different ways throughout this article, but the general gist is that there's several different resources that are available for funding, like district funds and grants, and each district will just need to be able to find the money that they can allot to the technology.
Connection pathways and getting high-speed internet to schools. Firstly, you have to consider what the options your school has for high-speed internet access in your area. Do you have wired access through physical connections of fiber optics? If you have those installed already in your area, they're one of the best methods, but they're expensive to install if you don't already have the systemic physical location. Cable providers can provide internet, but you have to consider the bandwidth you'll need as a school to ensure you won't have spotty connections. And in some instances, like if you have a rural region where you don't have wired or cable services available, a wireless route is an option for high-speed internet access as well. Fixed wireless, where you basically use signal towers, is good, but you have to have a direct connection between the signal towers where you can physically see them, and they can have latency, which is like a delay on a phone call. Mobile broadband uses services like your mobile data on your phone, like LTE, but also can have latency. Lastly, satellite internet also has the direct connection issues where you have to be directly in line of sight with the satellite, which can be problematic because sometimes the satellite is blocked by clouds or other things. Additionally, it's often the most expensive per speed and has a significant latency as well. Then you have to consider what connectivity path is correct for your needs. Schools can connect through different paths to get access to the school. There's a connection through an REN, which is really cool. Those are basically if you have, an REN is a research and education network, and these were originally for academic research communities' needs, but there aren't always RENs available. Next, you can connect through the district to a commercial internet service provider. This example right here, those are pretty good as well. And you can connect as a school directly to a commercial ISP if you don't have an REN as well. The main difference between district and school is the uses of a wide access network or a local access network and different purchasing powers based on school size, district size, etc. Lastly, you have an option of connection pathway by having your devices themselves connect directly to a commercial ISP, like the data that goes directly to your mobile phone. These are good for schools that send devices home with their students, and off-campus devices happen a lot. That's pretty good because it keeps you connected all the time. Additionally, you have to consider what elements will affect your costs. For example, how many devices you have, the capacity of your current physical infrastructure, distance geographically if you're a rural community or if you're in a city, as well as geographic things like weather that could affect your connection, especially when you have wireless connections such as satellite, or if you have different pathways that are available like an REN or fiber optic that you could lease. Another cost is security measures, what you're physically going to have to do for security and what you can do. Other questions to ask yourself as a district or a school is what your funding options are for getting internet into schools and what resources are available if you're a rural school, because you might not always have the same opportunities. Once you get your internet to the school or district, you have to figure out how to plan your network within the school or district itself. Firstly, planning within the school, you have to figure out how you got your internet to the school in the first place. even if you have a wired network to the school, which is the best option for speed, inside the school, the best option is usually wireless because there are so many places and devices that you're going to have to connect. You also have to consider your physical infrastructure on the local level, things like the number and locations of connections you're going to have to provide and how much bandwidth factors will be affected. Things like radio emissions can affect your connectivity as well as certain devices. And you want to have a strong connection consistently for your students and teachers to learn on. Lastly, there's security risks. You have to think of what your security risks are and how you should manage those. A lot of schools want to limit what their students can access or teachers can access and content filter with their district security to make sure kids have controlled access to educational materials, but not things that are, time wasters and other stuff that is not appropriate for children. You also need to consider firewalls and intrusion alerts if something illegal or unauthorized is happening, because a single virus affecting a district's network can cause major problems. Once you've managed those, you're pretty good and you have your network inside your school set up.
Educational benefits of increased connectivity are realized only when internet-enabled devices are available to students and teachers. Devices that are shared by students or accessed only in designated computer labs limit the availability of students to engage in ongoing collaboration and of teachers to use high-quality digital learning materials. Additionally, students who do not have personal devices may not have access to the same level of personalized learning that enables students to learn through practices that are best suited to their needs. Also, many of them don't learn as productively as those in an environment where they have access to the devices whenever they need them. Another aspect to be considered here occurs when districts are deciding on what devices to purchase. Districts should test a wide number of devices before selecting a specific one. Again, learning objectives and vision for technology-enabled teaching and learning should be the primary driving factor in the selection of devices for teachers and students. Additional factors to consider now are the funding of the technological devices. Districts have a variety of different options here, such as grants and donations, and they also have different options in terms of the devices themselves, which could be tablets or laptops, both of which cost different amounts. The last factor to consider here is the rollout method for the program. Often, districts will choose to implement the technology to the teachers first before distributing it to the students. An example of this is at Whittier Middle School in Norman. They've distributed a MacBook to all of their teachers now for the spring semester, and each student will get a MacBook in the fall.
Responsible use, privacy, and other considerations. As schools transition to online assessments, the districts are responsible for maintaining up-to-date software, security, and privacy settings, and to protect student data. Sometimes it will be necessary to install special software tools to take care of these things. Likewise, districts do need to decide how much student access exists for each device. As this is considered, remember that limiting a student's access in one class may limit technology use in subsequent classes as well. Terms for responsible use of technology are often outlined in an acceptable use policy, AUP, or a responsible use policy, RUP. Parents are usually asked to acknowledge that their child agrees to basic care and responsibility guidelines. Internet conduct falls under this responsibility. Protecting privacy is important when looking to include technology within the classroom. Some policies set in place to ensure privacy include the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, and the Health Insurance Portability and Privacy Act. It is the school's responsibility to protect students from inappropriate content when they're using the internet. To do this, they can use technical filtering, teach responsibility, and involve the parents. A policy on dealing with lost or damaged devices should also be addressed in advance with teachers, students, and parents before giving technology out in the classroom. Some of the best ways to handle this are to explicitly discuss responsibility practices with students, to allow students to customize their devices in order to provide a greater sense of ownership and make each device easily identifiable, require the students to set password locks, prohibit carrying the device outside of their cases or backpacks, install device tracking software, require payment if the device is missing or damaged while in the student's care, establish an insurance policy to repair or replace the device, and maintain an extra inventory of devices to replace broken or missing ones.